The snow fell softly in Boulder, Colorado. It was Christmas Day, 1996. Inside the Ramsey home, a nightmare was unfolding. 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey, a beauty queen in the making, was gone. Her bed was empty. A ransom note lay on the stairs. Patsy Ramsey, JonBenét's mother, made the frantic 911 call. John Ramsey, JonBenét's father, searched desperately for any sign of his little girl. Hours crawled by, each tick of the clock amplifying the agonizing uncertainty. John made a gruesome discovery in the basement. JonBenét's tiny body lay lifeless. News of JonBenét's murder spread like wildfire. The media descended upon Boulder, cameras capturing every detail. Headlines screamed, fueling a public obsession with the case. Reporters camped outside the Ramsey home, microphones thrust toward anyone who came near. The case became a macabre spectacle, a real-life crime drama playing out on television screens. JonBenét's story transcended the news, becoming a cautionary tale. JonBenét Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia. She was the apple of her parents' eyes, a bright and bubbly child. From a young age, JonBenét possessed an undeniable charm. John Ramsey, JonBenét's father, was a successful businessman. Patsy Ramsey, her mother, was a former beauty queen. With their 2 children, Burke and JonBenét, the Ramseys seemed to embody the American dream. JonBenét thrived in the warmth of her family. Patsy, recognizing her daughter's potential, began entering JonBenét in local beauty pageants. The world of child beauty pageants was JonBenét's oyster. With her blonde curls perfectly coiffed, she charmed her way into the hearts of judges. JonBenét loved the spotlight, the applause washing over her. Patsy meticulously planned every detail of her daughter's pageant career. JonBenét, a natural performer, embraced the pageantry with enthusiasm. The trophies and tiaras began to pile up. JonBenét was crowned Little Miss Colorado, among other titles. Despite the glitz and glamour, JonBenét remained a 6-year-old girl. She loved to play dress-up, ride her bike, and spend time with her family. The Ramseys strived to provide their children with a normal upbringing. JonBenét attended kindergarten at a local school. But behind the facade of the perfect family, there were whispers of a different story. Some described Patsy as controlling and obsessed with JonBenét's pageant success. The early morning light of December 26, 1996, cast a somber glow over the Ramsey household. John Ramsey, his face etched with worry, had searched every nook and cranny of their home. He called out his daughter's name, clinging to hope. John descended the stairs to the basement. There in the middle of the floor lay a piece of yellow police tape. Beneath the tape lay a white blanket. John's gaze fell upon the shape beneath the blanket. He pulled back the blanket, revealing the lifeless body of his little girl. JonBenét lay there, her once vibrant blue eyes now vacant. Earlier that morning, Patsy Ramsey discovered a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note. The note, addressed to John, was filled with threats and demands. It spoke of a small foreign faction holding JonBenét captive, demanding $118,000. The note was penned on a notepad that belonged to the Ramseys. The handwriting was later analyzed, with some experts deeming it to be Patsy's. The note's demand for $118,000 matched John Ramsey's recent bonus. The note became a focal point of the investigation. The discovery of JonBenét's body in the basement sent shockwaves through the investigation. Every inch of the basement was meticulously photographed and dusted for fingerprints. The basement's layout was simple, a large rectangular space with a concrete floor. A small window appeared to have been disturbed. Next to the window well, a suitcase lay open. The suitcase contained fibers that matched the fibers found on the duct tape used on JonBenét. However, the basement window was covered in cobwebs, suggesting it hadn't been opened in some time. The more investigators examined the scene, the more they suspected something was amiss. The position of JonBenét's body seemed too deliberate. The duct tape covering her mouth was applied with precision. The ransom note pointed towards a carefully planned act. The basement itself seemed an unlikely place for a child to be held captive. Investigators believe JonBenét may have been killed elsewhere in the house. From the moment the 911 call was placed, the investigation was riddled with missteps. The initial response by the Boulder Police Department was chaotic. Crucial evidence may have been compromised due to the constant flow of people in and out of the Ramsey home. Friends and family members were allowed to roam freely throughout the house. The ransom note was not immediately secured and was handled by multiple people. This lack of protocol cast a shadow of doubt over the integrity of the investigation. Section 2. The Evidence Maze. The Ramsey case was far more complex than anticipated. Contradictory evidence led to dead ends and speculation. The bizarre ransom note baffled investigators. Unidentified male DNA suggested an intruder, but no match was found. Fibers matched Patsy Ramsey's clothing but were inconclusive. The evidence fueled ongoing debate about the Ramsey family's involvement. Section 3. Tunnel Vision. The Boulder police faced mounting pressure to solve the high-profile case. This pressure led to what some experts call tunnel vision. Investigators fixated on a particular theory, often excluding other possibilities. The initial focus was on an intruder, fueled by the ransom note and unidentified DNA. As no credible suspects emerged, the focus shifted to family involvement. This led to relentless scrutiny of the Ramsey family, especially Patsy Ramsey. Section 4. Public Scrutiny. The Ramsey case, with its mix of wealth, beauty, and tragedy, captivated the nation's attention like few criminal cases before it. The media, sensing a sensational story, descended upon Boulder, transforming the quiet Colorado town into a media circus. Every detail of the case, no matter how small or insignificant, was splashed across newspapers and television screens, fueling a public obsession that bordered on hysteria. The Ramseys, once living a life of privilege and privacy, were thrust into the unforgiving glare of the public spotlight, their every move scrutinized, their every word dissected. The public, hungry for answers and eager to play armchair detective, latched onto every theory, every rumor, every shred of evidence, no matter how tenuous. Talk shows dedicated countless hours to dissecting the case, inviting so-called experts and self-proclaimed witnesses to share their opinions and speculations. Books were written, documentaries were filmed, and websites were created, all dedicated to unraveling the mystery of JonBenét Ramsey's murder. The relentless media attention and public scrutiny had a devastating impact on the Ramsey family. John and Patsy Ramsey, once a seemingly united front, found themselves increasingly isolated and ostracized by their community. Friends distanced themselves, fearing guilt by association, while strangers whispered accusations and cast judgmental stares. The constant barrage of media attention made it impossible for the Ramseys to grieve in private, forcing them to confront the unimaginable loss of their daughter while simultaneously defending themselves against a barrage of accusations and innuendo. The theory that an intruder had slipped into the Ramsey home hinged on a few key pieces of evidence. The most compelling was the basement window, slightly ajar, its latch tampered with. This discovery suggested someone had breached the Ramsey home. The window, hidden by bushes, seemed an easy point of entry. It painted a chilling picture of a shadowy figure moving silently through the night. Adding to the intrigue was a suitcase found near the window, its contents strewn about. The suitcase, like the open window, offered more questions than answers. The Ramseys lived in an affluent neighborhood, a seemingly idyllic enclave. Yet, beneath the tranquility, darkness could lurk in the shadows. In the weeks leading up to JonBenét's murder, there had been a series of burglaries. Homes had been broken into, valuables taken, peace of mind shattered. These incidents cast a long shadow over the investigation, a reminder that no one was truly immune to violence. Unidentified male DNA found on JonBenét's clothing and under her fingernails supported the intruder theory. This discovery hinted at a struggle, a desperate attempt by a 6-year-old girl to fight back, her fingernails scraping against their skin, leaving behind the tiniest, most damning of traces. The DNA profile was entered into national databases, but no match was ever found. The intruder theory, for all its seeming plausibility, was not without its flaws. The lack of forced entry, the undisturbed dust on the basement windowsill, and the absence of footprints in the fresh snow outside the window all cast doubt on the idea that a stranger had entered the home that night. Furthermore, the ransom note, with its bizarre language and seemingly staged tone, seemed to point towards a more calculated act, one that suggested a level of premeditation and familiarity with the Ramsey family that was difficult to reconcile with the idea of a random intruder. The DNA, while compelling, was also problematic. It was found in trace amounts, making it difficult to analyze and raising the possibility of contamination. It was also unclear how long the DNA had been present on JonBenét's clothing, leaving open the possibility that it had been transferred innocently at some point prior to her death. The intruder theory, like all the theories in the Ramsey case, was a puzzle with missing pieces, a story with gaping holes. It offered a glimpse into a possible scenario, a narrative that, while unsettling, provided a sense of closure, a way to make sense of the senseless. But ultimately, it was a theory built on speculation and circumstantial evidence, a house of cards that threatened to collapse under the weight of its own inconsistencies. As the investigation into JonBenét Ramsey's murder dragged on, the focus inevitably shifted inwards, towards the family. The very people who should have been JonBenét's protectors were now under the microscope. The intruder theory began to crumble, leaving a void filled with suspicion directed at the Ramsey family. The public, fueled by the media, latched onto the idea of a dark secret within the Ramsey home. The Ramseys, once objects of sympathy, found themselves transformed into the villains of their own tragedy. The idea that a family member could harm JonBenét was both repulsive and morbidly fascinating. The finger of blame, once pointed outwards, now threatened to tear them apart from the inside. One of the most enduring theories surrounding JonBenét Ramsey's death is the idea that she died accidentally, perhaps at the hands of a family member, and that the crime scene was staged to look like a kidnapping gone wrong. Proponents pointed to the lack of forced entry, undisturbed dust on the basement window, and no footprints in the fresh snow as evidence against an intruder. They argued the ransom note was a desperate attempt to cover up the true nature of JonBenét's death. At the heart of the theory surrounding family involvement in JonBenét Ramsey's murder lay a single, enigmatic piece of evidence: the ransom note. This 2.5-page handwritten message was as baffling as it was chilling. Addressed to John Ramsey, it demanded $118,000. The note's length and tone struck investigators as odd. Filled with deliberate misspellings, it seemed to disguise the author's identity. The demand matched John Ramsey's recent bonus, fueling suspicions of family involvement. As the investigation into JonBenét's murder intensified, the Ramseys found themselves increasingly isolated. Their once united front crumbled under the weight of suspicion and scrutiny. The media turned on the family with a vengeance, capturing every tear and stumble. John Ramsey, once a successful businessman, was now portrayed as cold and calculating. Patsy Ramsey, once a beauty queen, was cast as a ruthless stage mom. Burke Ramsey, just 9 years old, was not spared from the spotlight. The Ramseys, once a symbol of the American dream, now lived a nightmare, their unity shattered by the dark cloud of suspicion. In the years since JonBenét Ramsey's murder, DNA technology has revolutionized forensic science. Once a blunt instrument, DNA analysis now breathes life into cold cases. For the Ramsey case, these breakthroughs offered hope, but results were mixed. Preserved samples were re-examined with sophisticated techniques. The results provided clues and dead ends. Unidentified male DNA remained a frustrating mystery. Despite advancements, some secrets remain buried. One of the most intriguing developments in the Ramsey case was touch DNA analysis, isolating DNA from the slightest contact. This breakthrough allowed re-examination of previously contaminated evidence. The hope was to build a complete picture of who had been present in the Ramsey home. The results were promising yet perplexing. Multiple DNA profiles were found on items like duct tape and cord. This suggested more than one person may have been involved. However, the analysis highlighted the limitations of forensic science. Multiple DNA profiles did not necessarily point to foul play. The touch DNA offered glimpses into the past but failed to provide definitive answers. Despite advancements in forensic technology, the murder of JonBenét Ramsey remains unsolved. Theories abound, each offering a different interpretation of the evidence. The intruder theory has lost some luster as DNA testing has failed to produce a match. The family involvement theory remains controversial, fueled by inconsistencies and lingering suspicions. Despite years of scrutiny, no charges have been filed, and the Ramseys maintain their innocence. The case reflects our anxieties about class, privilege, and forensic science. As decades pass, the question of who killed JonBenét Ramsey continues to haunt us. The unsolved murder of JonBenét Ramsey stands as a stark reminder of the complexities of human nature and the enduring power of mystery. It is a case that has defied easy answers, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and lingering doubts. For the public, it is a cautionary tale that evil can lurk in unexpected places. Even within the supposed safety of our homes, darkness can find a foothold. It speaks to our deepest fears about the vulnerability of innocence and the fragility of life. For JonBenét's family, it is a tragedy compounded by years of suspicion and public condemnation. Their grief is compounded by the constant reminders of their loss and unresolved questions. The quest for closure has become a search for meaning and justice in a world where it often seems in short supply. The snow that once blanketed the Ramseys' Boulder home has long since melted, yet the chill left behind by JonBenét's murder lingers. The image of a bright, beautiful 6-year-old, her life tragically cut short, continues to haunt the collective memory. Years have morphed into decades, marked by advancements in forensic technology, yet the question remains, who killed JonBenét Ramsey? Though the mystery of her death remains unsolved, JonBenét Ramsey's legacy endures. Her story sparks conversations and inspires the pursuit of justice. It reminds us of the vulnerability of innocence and the ripple effects of violence. The case highlights flaws in our justice system and the influence of media sensationalism. Amidst the tragedy, JonBenét's story offers hope and fuels advancements in forensic science. The fight for justice continues, driven by the belief that the truth is worth pursuing.